So what we're going to do is just a basic overview of the basic legal documents that are helpful for anyone, especially families who are dealing with any form of dementia or even aging. So the power of attorney and the healthcare power of attorney are the two most important documents that we can do. Often people come see me because they feel like they need a will. And we do, it's helpful if we have an actual plan for where assets are going to go. But in all honesty, I can sort out who gets what after somebody has passed away. But there's a lot of important decisions that are made before a person's death. There's a lot of healthcare that happens in that aging process. And if there's not a proactive plan, like a chain of command, who's going to help me if I cannot advocate for myself, then it's often left to, it becomes chaotic, it becomes majority vote, or a race to the courthouse. When I worked in healthcare, when I was in college, I watched a lot of families struggle with healthcare decisions in the ICU, and I would see families stand at the bedside, and the debate, what was being said was, I'm not ready. And it became whoever's voice was loudest, not necessarily who had firsthand knowledge of what the patient wanted. It was more what the family member wanted. And the person who squawked the loudest tended to be the one who controlled the narrative. And it didn't often match what we knew the patient really wanted. So as I switched in to my career in law, I really tried to merge those things and help educate families so they knew how to take it out of that chaos and reactive mode into a pre-planned, how do I make sure that the care that I receive is what I actually want? So often when you're looking at a power of attorney, you may see the power of attorney kind of, the healthcare power of attorney baked into the regular power of attorney. Mm-hmm. There's a move, and there will be, over the next couple of years, you're going to see more and more of it switching into truly two separate documents. The statutes are changing, which is a very good thing, because the job description of who is best at balancing the checkbook and making sure the taxes are paid and your water bill is paid, that job description may be actually very different than the person in your support system who can advocate best for you in the healthcare scenario. Because the person who can balance a checkbook may not be able to understand or advocate in that crisis health. The person who's really good at the crisis health management may not have the checkbook skill set. So teasing those two documents apart into two separate things based on the job description allows us to at least look at who is best equipped to help me in these two roles. And sometimes people choose the same person, and sometimes they choose different people based on the job description. And what this helps us do is several things. By having the power of attorney, the healthcare power of attorney, and some advanced directives, we can almost always avoid court intervention and a guardianship. So we don't have the judge deciding that a person is incapacitated, and then the judge picking based on their short snapshot into your family who they think is best at making these superimposed decisions. So it keeps the control with the patient and with the family. And so even my mother dealt with dementia for many years, and she was able to set out earlier when she could verbalize, this is what I want. If I can no longer voice it, I want this person to help this way. I need this person to help in this way. This is how you can support me if I cannot verbalize my wishes on my own. And so she set the ground rules and the control parameters over the time period where she was afraid she wouldn't be able to advocate for herself. And not only did it help us make sure her wishes were honored, it made it much easier for us as a family because we knew what our marching orders were. Here, if this happens, do this. And doesn't make, many of the things that happened after that were very hard. But by having the tool set, it's always, my daughter likes to cook. I find it very hard to bake a cake when I don't have flour. And if I've got to bake it now. If I have my kitchen stocked, when she decides we're gonna bake right now, it's much easier. It's the same thing with these legal documents. By planning ahead and deciding who is best to help here, there, and yonder, we have control over the bumpy spots that might occur in the future. The other piece that happens is it really helps open some lines of communication with your family and your support network, so they know that topics are not taboo, they know that it's okay to ask questions, and they know more about what they're supposed to do and how to help. And it really helps, so having been on kind of both sides of it, it helped me, for my mother, know what I was supposed to do. I see so many families come in and the seniors are sitting in front of me and they're like, my family knows exactly what I want for healthcare. And the family leans back just a little bit to try to get behind line of sight, and they shake their head and they're like, no, we don't. There's this assumption that the answers to the healthcare questions are so obvious and common sense that if you know me, you know what I want. That is not, it doesn't sort out that way. One more example about my mom, she was really super clear, no dialysis ever. Got it, no dialysis ever. She needed platelet pheresis. It's a machine that takes blood out of your arm, runs it through the machine, cleans out platelets, puts the blood back in. I was fixing to say no, because it's filtering out, it's the same process, filtering out a different thing. She said yes. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I would have answered that one wrong. I'm glad you did. But the more that you work through it, and the sooner you work through it, when you're not in a crisis, the more the communication can be established, so people know what to look for, how to process it. And there is one link that I will provide so that we can upload it to some of the site later. It's called, the American Bar Association put together something called the Advanced Directive Toolkit. And it walks through how to choose, how to evaluate different people in your support network. And then it's got about 10 pages of question and answers of, if this happens, then I want this. My favorite part about it is at the end, it's got a quiz. So I would fill out the answers for what I want for myself. My boys would have the same document. They would answer the same questions. And then we can compare notes to see, we've had communication, but at that point we can exchange notes and see if it was in fact effective communication.
So they would ask it based on what they thought you would answer. Oh, interesting, yeah.
If this happens to mom, what do we do?
Can you say that's on the American Bar Association website?
Yes, and I will post I'll give you guys a link that we can post.
I wonder if I could put it in the chat too, of the Zoom.
Jim, can you report and see? I know where it is on our side, but yes, I think we can get it and
okay.
I can get it there. But if you go to the American Bar Association and you look for it, it's called the Advanced Directive Healthcare Toolkit. Perfect. It will pull up this, and there's a free document. It's about 15-20 pages.
That's awesome.
It's phenomenal.
Yeah.
But the quiz thing at the end is just
eye-opening.
Yes. I had always said, if I break my leg, take me to Dr. Terry Trammell in Indianapolis. I broke my leg. They gave me 3 doses of morphine in my driveway. So by the time I got to the hospital, I didn't have the sense God gave a goose. 3 doses of morphine, nobody has. And my family members were so busy being polite to one another that nobody bothered to say, this is not a trick question. Broken leg, Indianapolis. They let me stay in Bedford.
Oh gosh.
And people were asking me if I wanted to go to Bloomington. I didn't want to get back in the ambulance because it hurt. But nobody could see that he was impaired.
Right.
So I guess I sounded more clear than I really was. But with opening the line of communicate, my boys know to never let that happen. I have taught them how to beg the question of, I don't think Mama's making sense. I don't think she's actually as clear as, so how do we, as a result of part of that, the powers of attorney that we're gonna look at in a minute, the healthcare power of attorney actually has a toggle switch, an on-off switch built into it. A lot of times people are afraid that once it turns on, it's just on forever. We've built it so that it's on when you need help. And when you're clear again, it gets back out of the way. So if the medical providers document that you cannot give informed consent, it turns on. When you're clear again, you can give informed consent, it turns back off automatically. So it turns itself on and off. So we've designed it to fit the medical field more as opposed to making just sense in my office. But again, if the family doesn't know about the on-off switch or how to ask the question to help the healthcare providers realize, oh wait, yeah, nope, I'm not talking to you, but I only needed help for that day and a half while I had that much medicine. I don't need it now. So working with the families so that we've got the tools, the client has control, and the family members begin to learn how to use the tools so that then when we get to the crisis situation, it's not the first time they've seen the document, it's not the first time they've tried it on, and if we've used the quiz tool through that American Bar Association toolkit, we've had confirmation that we've got the active listening, and there really is a consensus of, yeah, the people I've picked, they know what I want, and the caregiver or the support system, they know that they've heard the right thing. Their take-home message was the right one.
That's awesome.
So the check and balance is really good.
I love that.
So what we're gonna, then on this is where it's gonna get a little difficult between the Zoom and the paper document. So for the people who are in the room with us, we've got some little worksheets if you want to do a power of attorney and a healthcare power of attorney. They see, it's the same thing, but they're looking at it from a different perspective, and they can see how it can actually help them feel safer. But it's a little bit of word games, but it truly is a paradigm shift. And if you look at it as these are documents that can help me maintain control, help me stay safe, it's less threatening and you don't feel like you're giving away. And when they see the distinction between the power of attorney, one thing, power of attorney can fire the person they've appointed. They can revoke it and take, with a guardianship, you don't have that unilateral ability to stop it. So when they can see the distinction between it is this, it is not that, then people often become more comfortable with what. Are there any other questions that we might want to address before we switch into maybe looking at the actual forms?
Let them know I'm watching the chat too.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yes.
Let them Zoom.
Speaking of revocations, I was curious, I do quite a few advanced directives in my work. Do you ever find that somebody comes to you for a revocation and you're hesitant because you actually think that there's no one else to take their place? And I was just curious about, speak more about revocation in general, and when somebody doesn't really have anyone else and they really do need somebody, do you run into that?
Yes, I run into it some. I've been a little bit blessed with where I practice in Southern Indiana. Our area has served as a test pilot for a guardianship program for people who don't have, for volunteer guardians to serve. And then we've also been able to serve as a test pilot for a supported decision-making program.
Okay.
So for all of the things where Southern Indiana sometimes lacks services, I have been blessed in that they have kind of used my little section of Indiana to test pilot some programs that actually speak to the need you're talking about. Okay, what do we do when we have a person who needs assistance and doesn't have a natural support system? How do we create one? So I have been blessed just by geography that I've been able to use some of those systems. I'm hoping the supported decision-making part of the statute, which helps keep people out of guardianships, that is something that I hope that we will start to see spreading across the state and being used more, and more grant money going, and even they're looking, I believe, at some state money to help fund that. Because you can't just invent it out of whole cloth. I mean, great, there's the statute, but how do I find the person to do it? So there is some movement at the state level to try and meet that need without going into a guardianship. Because what happens is if we don't have anybody, then we end up in a guardianship situation.
By the way, your voice is fading in and out.
Yeah, that's what I heard too.
For some reason.
I've tried really hard not to move, so I don't know, but yeah.
That was better. So, yeah, I have 4 counties that have no FOSTA program.
Right.
Basically. I have 1 county that is covered, and then I do also work over where there's Monroe and Owen have FOSTA.
Right.
So, yeah, I have 4 counties that really don't have any kind of public guardianship.
Right. Yeah,
That
it's,
sounds ideal what you have.
yeah, I've just been lucky. But it really, there is not I can tell you that there is not a good answer, short of those. Prior to that, the answer was, in my area, call it there and see if she'll do it. Well, that's not ideal. Okay, so I think we're gonna stop with the Zoom part. Thank you so much for being patient with us while we tried to sort out this tech part. Thank you.